Friends, we're going to get started in 1 minute. 1 minute.
Good to see you. I see you on Facebook. Oh, yeah. How's it going? Yeah, right. I retired a year ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, this is absolutely busy. Stuff like this. I got get there. Eventually get there. I Like, what's that about? I had no idea. I didn't know they They're all upset. Why are you upset?
I study. Can't run in here.
Oh yeah, I'm
Not today.
Friends, you're going to get started in 30 seconds. Grab a seat. If you guys want to do one more speed, you're not close.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Diane, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So thankful to have what will be a full house once the taco truck line dissipates, for such an important conversation for our community and for the future of both IPS and K-12 education in our city. We are proud to host this, I think, for the 4th consecutive time in partnership with the Edinburgh Christian Center and so many of our community partners here in Markdale Brightwood. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Andy Seibert. I serve as the Executive Director for KIPP Indy Schools. This is my 13th year with KIPP, and as we have grown as a network of schools over the last 2 decades, our identity has really been clarified to be all about being deeply committed to Markdale Brightwood and to fostering a network of schools that is deeply in community, that responds to community, and that partners with community to support our students' success every single day. And so over time, a part of that charge has been to open our doors as a community asset to have community conversations that are aligned with what we hear from residents, what we hear from our students and families are the most important issues to them. And so, again, I think almost a decade ago now, we hosted the first one of these. This building didn't exist at that time, but the spirit that's in this room did, which is how do we center the voices of the youth in our community and residents of Markdale Brightwood to ensure there is a clear avenue for folks to hear directly from candidates that are running for IPS School Board, given how important that is to the future, not only of our neighborhood, but of our city as a whole. At KIPP Indy, we probably educate 1,500 students this year in grades K through 12. And a huge part of who we are as a network of schools is a partner with IPS. There's been no educational institution in this city that's been more important to the vibrancy and fabric of Markdale Brightwood over the past century than IPS. And really since our inception, so we started in 2004, since 2006 we've been partnering with IPS. Up at our gate building on 30th Street, and then since 2015, formally as a network of innovation schools. And we wear that partnership as a badge of honor. We are proud to partner with IPS, and a huge part of that partnership is having meaningful relationships and collaboration opportunities with the IPS Board of School Commissioners. And so, as part of that, then we are super thrilled to have this happening tonight. As again, just an opportunity for our students and the community to hear directly from these wonderful candidates. Before we pass over to our incredible moderator, Vika, also representing an institution that is deeply, deeply embedded, not only in the fabric of Minneapolis community, but especially Markdale Brightwood, which is just around the corner. I want to turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Barato Britt, who has, who really doesn't need an introduction, but who has served for many years as President and CEO of the Edinburgh Christian Center, which is really the cornerstone nonprofit in Markdale Brightwood. It's been here since 1941. And so I'll turn it over to Barato to share a little bit more about what tonight means for the neighborhood lens before we really get things going. But again, just want to thank every single one of you for being here tonight and for all that you do to support student success across the city here at KIPP and at Markdale Brightwood. So give it up for my friend who loves nothing more than public speaking, Robert.
community. Thank you, Andy. Andy covered most of it, so I can be very brief and just allow us to get to the business at hand. Again, I'm Barato Brick, President and CEO of the Martin Christian Center, who also is a proud partner, obviously, with the KIPP Indy Public Schools Network. But I'm also very pleased to represent a coalition of organizations making up not only our neighborhood community, our school community council, many of the sponsors you see helping make up this event, but a broader community of organizations that have aligned for the past several years, plus the integration of quality of life plan, intentional coordinated quality of life strategies that do seek to enhance overall upward mobility and movement for the individuals and families that we serve. Nothing of the 10 pillars, there's not one or more or less important, but certainly education is a very, very critical pillar in that. We are fortunate to be fortified by a network here in KIPP Indy that does serve 80% of the students educated in a public environment here in Martindale Brightwood. But we're also comprehensive. We're thinking more about not just this network, but how do we broaden our education partnerships. Obviously, utilizing the partnership with our core, our state selectors district IPS, which has helped us build that, in addition to all the different partners who make up our approach to, again, holistic, comprehensive supports. So that's part of our impetus for conducting this forum. Our quality of life plan is president-led but community stakeholder-driven, but it requires a level of information sharing, coordination, so that we can mobilize and galvanize toward common positive solutions for our neighborhood. Which is why, again, we really appreciate the school board members, not only for answering the call for service, but really participating in this forum. We hope to be able to work with the candidates in beneficial ways that we've tried to lean into. That is in good faith, not knowing that we don't necessarily agree on everything, but we have a common cause, and that is the proper education, high quality education uplift of all of our children. So again, you can be assured that we as partners, not just with KIPP Indy, not just with the community council, but the neighborhood itself, looks forward to a long-term, continually fruitful and sustained partnership with IPS. We look forward to learning more about each one of you, and again, just know our community is here to not just support the district, but our community as a whole. So again, welcome, and with that, I will pass it back to Andy, who's going to get one more thing, because it's not going to be me.
Before we move on, can we just give it up for our incredible Chief Partnerships Officer, Martha Cortez, who really did all the planning and hard work to make tonight possible, coordinating with candidates, making sure every single detail is taken care of. All of the organizations on this slide, from the education zone to Edmund Martin to the Promise Neighborhoods to the Brightwood Community Center, were involved with the planning, but Martha drove this from start to tonight, and so without her leadership, nights like tonight just wouldn't be possible. So Martha, thank you so much. I thought we'd be remiss to do that before we turn it over, but with that, we can turn it over to Benita.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kamika Jones. I'm the editor-in-chief at the Indianapolis Recorder. We have a lot to cover tonight, so we'll just get right on into it. Again, we want to thank all of the sponsoring organizations, KIPP Indy and the Martin Christian Center, Indy East Promise Neighborhood, Martindale Brightwood Education Zone, and the Brightwood Community Center for creating the space for this dialogue and for the IPS School Board candidates. We're all here. A big thank you as well to the candidates running for seats in District 1, District 2, District 4, and at large. We are thankful for your partnership on this very important local election. Thank you as well. Special thanks to the families, to the students, to the community members, to the very strong advocates for education that we see in the audience tonight, for those who are watching online as well and who have participated in the survey in advance. We hope to cover all the issues that matter most to you all. So the purpose of tonight's forum is twofold. One, we want to elevate the voices of our community, as well as to create an opportunity for you all to hear directly from the candidates who are running for the board seats in Districts 1, 2, 4, and at large. And my role as a moderator will be to provide an unbiased, neutral space for the candidates to answer their questions developed in partnership with the community. Before we get started, the forum is organized into 3 main sections. The first section is questions developed using feedback from over 137 families, communities, students, and staff. The second part is questions that will be directly asked from a student, from a parent, from a community resident, and from a staff member. And last is questions from the audience here today. And to ensure that we have a productive conversation tonight, the following ground rules were shared with the candidates in advance. The set, format, and staging of the forum shall in no way show any preference, opposition, or disrespect to any of the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds. You all heard that. 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to each question and be given a 30-second warning. For the audience questions, candidates will have 1 minute to respond, and if time allows, each candidate will have 30 seconds for closing remarks. Questions from the audience will be collected until 6:20 p.m. All audience participants may use the comment cards, which are available at your tables. Okay? And a member of the KIPP Indy team will walk around collecting the cards. Now we get to introduce the candidates who are here. They will be introduced in alphabetical order. First, we have Commissioner Kenneth Allen at large. Commissioner Allen is the incumbent candidate. He is the Chief Engagement Officer for Indiana Youth Services Association. Prior to this, he served as the Program Director for Indiana Trafficking Victims Assistance Program. He is also the Vice Chair of the Indianapolis Commission on African American Males and a Commissioner with the Indiana Commission on the Social Status of Black Males. Dr. Gail Cosby, District 2. Dr. Cosby is a former member of the IPS Board. She previously taught in IPS between 2007 and 2011. Dr. Cosby is an assistant professor and program chair of education at IPS Community College. Carrie Harris, at large. Ms. Harris is an IPS graduate, educational advocate, and has formerly worked at Ivy Tech Community College. Alyssa Impink, District 4. Ms. Impink is uncontested. She works for the Central Indiana Community Foundation as the Director of Family Philanthropy. Hassan Rashid, District 2. Mr. Rashid is an outside salesman in the underground utilities industry. Alan Schoaf, District 1. Mr. Schoaf works in marketing and copywriting. Ashley Thomas, District 1. Ms. Thomas is the CEO of AMT Foundation Consulting. She is an Indianapolis native whose passion for education and advocacy led her to speak up for her 3 children and community. Deandra Thompson, at large. Ms. Thompson is the founder and CEO of A Learning Bee Academy Preschool in Indianapolis. Okay, as we get started, remember that we'll have 8 questions total. Each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to 4 questions. The order to respond to each question was predetermined and will be announced as the questions are there. These questions were developed using input from over 137 family members, students, educators, and community leaders. All right, you ready? All right, let's go. Okay. Over the last 4 years, districts and schools across the country received additional federal dollars to address the impact of COVID-19 on students. While these grant dollars officially ended yesterday, we know that our students and communities require sustainable funding. What are your thoughts on the role that IPS School Board members should play in advocating for equitable and adequate funding for all of its schools, including innovation partners? Please also share the upcoming opportunities where you may be able to play in this role. This question is for Allen, Cosby, Harris, and then Impey. That's good.
Mic check, mic check.
Again, first of all, thank you all for KIPP and for Edna Martin and all the partners that put on this event. It's an honor to be here. The question is, I think, for an IPS board member, the most important thing we are advocates. And so we have to utilize our political influence to advocate for resources with the business owners within our community. We have to use our political influence to advocate to the members of the General Assembly to make sure they're allocating resources that are in the best interest of our students. So in my personal opinion, I am sad that those dollars have ran out, but I believe that there is an opportunity, particularly as we approach a budget session for this upcoming legislative session, for those that are elected school board members to really advocate to our General Assembly to get more resources for all of our children.
Good evening, thank you for having me. Thank you for putting this on and for everyone's engagement here this evening. The extra money that was allocated had specific earmarks tied to it. That grant money that was referenced, that is going away, that was specific for COVID. More broadly, school funding ultimately comes from our tax dollars, right? We all put into the pot, there's a limited amount, it all has to be shared. I think that myself as a commissioner, I'm committed to transparency in that process. Everybody wants to know that their tax dollars are being well spent and they're being spent equitably. And so one of the reasons that I'm running is to involve myself in the Innovation Network process to tighten that up. We'll get to that a little later detail-wise, but to tighten that up so that we are spending tax dollars in an equitable manner.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I'm Carrie Harris. I actually live here in Martindale Brightwood. And also I am really concerned about the funding because that is how schools are run. It's very important that we understand where the funding is coming from and also where it's being used. One of the things that I am really concerned about is how we make sure that the community understands where the dollars are coming from and how they're used. And so we do have to partner with the General Assembly who decides where the funds are going. We're going to have to figure out how we lobby better, how we make sure that the district, the IPS district, is at the top of the list receiving those funds. And so it's going to be a little bit more work than we put in the past. But I'm certain if you put me on the board, we'll be there doing those very great things for all the schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Pink, and thank you again for the invitation and opportunity to be here with you all this evening. In regards to funding, I'm going to just speak through a lens of advocacy and essentially what we at the local community essentially feel. As a former teacher in the classroom, I know what it felt like to not have adequate resources. We all had Chromebooks in our classrooms, and those Chromebooks did not work. I essentially had to figure out what to do to ensure that my students had what was adequate for them. So what's most important to me is proximity. Really ensuring that our legislators and those at the local level and at the legislature understand what it feels like to not actually have those resources for our students. As a school board commissioner, I want to ensure that those legislators have the understanding, and that can only happen if we have those personable relationships so they can understand what it is like and what it is that our students have and what they need. And that's something that I want to ensure that when I am on the board next year, I continue to develop those proximate and personable relationships in order to advocate for our students.
Next question. The demographics of Martindale Brightwood neighborhood and neighboring communities are changing. And as a result, we are experiencing an increase in the languages spoken by our communities. Across the IPS district and its portfolio of schools, 28% of students identify as Latinx. Specifically, Currently, at KIPP Indy Public Schools, the percentage of students who identify as Latinx has quadrupled in the last 4 years, increasing from 3% in 2020 to 24% in 2024. What staffing and/or services should the district provide to its schools to meet the increased needs of multilingual learners and ensure they graduate prepared for life after high school? And this question is for Rashid, Cho, Thomas, and Thompson.
Again, I want to thank KIPP Schools for putting on this event, and I am a candidate for District 2 Hassan Rashid. This is such an important question, and with the growing number of Latinx, I believe that we need to have teachers that can address those students in their mother tongue. I think this, the alarming rates that we have right now with our literacy in IPS, 78% of the students are reading below grade level. I think a lot of it has to do with kids not being able to learn in their mother tongue. I think that's something that we have to look at. We have to have teachers that can, the cultural things that would be helpful for those students. I think that's important. I think that it's important that we have administrators that are sensitive to that and that can help those students bridge the gap. And
Hi, my name is Alan Schoaf, and I'm running for District 1, which is down Penn Street, basically on the east side and the southeast side. So kind of a pie wedge down that way. The question about the growth and the change of the neighborhood is something that I've already experienced and gone through because I grew up in San Diego, California. And most of my educational peers were Latinos. That's my neighborhoods that I grew up in. It was a language that we were taught in school since the 3rd grade. Even though I spent most of my adult life here in Indianapolis, I would say that, this was, as soon as they put the Mexican consulate in here, I think this was very predictable. And I think that the district probably should have been better prepared for this surge of students. I know that this past year they had an unexpected surge over here at Arsenal Tech for a tech family. And there was, I think over 60%, or about 60% of the students now are Latino students, and half of them are English language learners. So I think that we definitely need, it's important that we look ahead how our population is changing. I think there's studies at the Polis Center. I think we can see that the gentrification is happening here in the middle of the city, and our low-income families are being pushed to the perimeter, and that's probably where we need to address.
My name is Ashley Thomas, and I'm running in IPS District 1 as well. So in my experience in education advocacy, I've worked with a really diverse group of families. So I've had the privilege of being able to serve families. Okay. I've had the privilege of being able to serve a diverse group of families. So to answer the question, I think, yes, we can do a lot. It's really difficult sometimes to really prepare for everything, but we've got to always be on point when it comes to what do the families need. We've got some amazing organizations that are here in the city, the Immigrant Welcome Center, a lot of newcomer organizations, the Latino Institute, etc. And it's important for us to actually partner with the folks who are already serving some of those families in those preferred languages, not only so we can leverage some of the services that are offered, making sure that inside of our schools we have folks who can speak the preferred language of those families so that those families can get the supports that they need and best support their student, so that we can bridge those gaps. But I think that's really important. But we also really need some really strong staff, not just in certain hub schools, but everywhere. In my time's up. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Deandra Thompson. I'm running for the IPS School Board at large seat. And I, as it was mentioned before, I'm an early childhood educator, and we witness this in our pre-K program all the time. And so one of the things that we do, as many people have said on the table here, is that we are proactive and we hire staff that look like our students and that can speak our language. ESL services should be a standard in every school. And so one of the things I think is just very important is that we're more proactive, whether it's talking about ESL services or financial resources for our teachers, anything like that. We all, or early literacy, we need to have a proactive approach. And so again, going back to the ESL, we not only have staff that look like us, but also making sure that all students are learning different languages, again, so that we're proactive, so by the time they're in kindergarten, it's not something new for students, it's something that they've done for 5 years since they were infants. So that's what I would bring to the board.
Thank you so much. For our third question, we'll actually have a KIPP student, Daslin. Give your hand for Daslin.
My name is Daslin Villarosa, and I attend KIPP Indy Legacy High School. School violence has impacted dozens of schools around the country since the Columbine shooting in 1999. Our state, city, and community must address gaps that go beyond just securing our buildings and conducting training. In 2018, a state task force created the Indiana School Safety Recommendations Report, which advised addressing students and school safety by enhancing existing funding sources and programs. It also emphasized the need for expanding mental health services, as well as the adoption of additional equipment and technology to improve school safety. As a board member, what actions would you take to ensure that students and families have access to resources and programs that promote school safety?
Thank you, Daslin. The order: Cosby, Harris, and Pink, and Rushing.
Thank you for that question. That's an important question. It's been on the forefront of my mind as a parent and as an educator. Here recently, we've had a rash of concerning activity. I don't know if you all are aware, but it came across my awareness a couple weeks ago. I think a lot of it's fueled by social media. It's not always, actually something that's going to take place, but it certainly can strike fear in our hearts every time that comes across the feed, or we get that message from the school saying, hey, we got a threat. So very real issue that we need to address. Absolutely, mental health should be available in every school. I'm a big proponent of the community school model. Community schools wrap their arms around the needs of their families and students in their buildings, not only providing things like mental health, but food pantries, clothing, all of the above to support families. But in addition, from my purview as an educator, I see a big gap in our teacher training. More often than not, my students lack a lot of training in simply classroom management, and that's a gap that I have to find myself filling. The basic of classroom management: build a relationship with your students. Let them know you love them, let them know that you care. That can circumvent about 95% of your issues in your classroom. So we work a lot on being reflective practitioners. We look at what has worked for us and what has not, and I think that goes a long way with social emotional learning in the classroom.
Thank you so much for the wonderful question. This is a big issue. Unfortunately, I did recently experience this. My grandson lives in Georgia, where they had the shooting recently. And so my daughter and I were on the phone the whole time that day. One of the things that we can do is we have to find funding, and I was so proud when I came in this evening that your police officer was out front and he winded everyone before they came in. We need to make sure that schools have that kind of thing at all of them if they don't have metal detectors. Well, we don't get on airplanes anymore without going through that process. We may have to bring that to our schools. We do need to find funding for exactly mental health services in our schools every day, not when something happens. They need to be there every day, figuring out those special students that may have problems at home and that may have special things that they need to be have services for during the day at the school. But what we all can do, because we live in our homes with our children, is we can love our children and make sure that we're giving the kinds of things that we need to so that they can come to school and feel comfortable with each other. And it's a socialization thing right now because of a lot of reasons. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So my journey started as a child welfare social worker. So I saw firsthand the challenges that many of our families face and are currently facing. I'm a former teacher in the IPS school district, and when I was in my classroom, though I wore these hats, though I wore the hat of being a social worker, though I wore the hat of being the school counselor, and though I wore the hat of seeing officers in our school building and being that security officer, it is not a teacher's responsibility to take on those roles. The importance of having funding and equitable funding in all of our schools is that each school will have the opportunity to have those resources in the school building. One of the things that is the most important thing, as well as these resources, whether it be a counselor, whether it be a social worker, whether it be a security guard, they cannot be strangers to our students. They have to build trust and they have to build quality relationships. So as the next school board commissioner, it's my intention to be able to observe and learn all of the equitable funding practices in the district and ensure that each district is resourced equitably.
So safety is paramount in all these schools. As a parent, I know when I send my kids off to school, I want them to be safe and not have to think about that throughout the day. We should be at peace to know that our children are safe, and I will make that my priority. We need to have community partnerships with any safety organizations that we don't currently, and we do need to have an environment that the kids, the administrators, everyone feels as though it's a family, so there's no one feeling that they're in a police state or anything else. But safety should be paramount, and if you elect me to District 2, I will make that a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question actually comes from a KIPP parent, Ms. Kelly.
Reading proficiently by the end of third grade is one of the most important indicators of future school success. Children from IPS School for readers by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school, and this rate doubles for Black and brown students. So as we continue to focus on literacy for all, what can the district do to improve the educational outcomes of Black and brown students?
Will answer Ms. Porter, Show, Thomas, Thompson, and Allen.
Great, thank you so much for the question. I read tests has become ever more important since it is mandatory now by state law that children that don't pass will be retained. And my witness to that experience for children is I believe it's a draconian law, personally. I think that it's too hard on the social, emotional, and I think that we need to really focus more on interventions and help those children get to where they need to be. I recently, one of my things I've been doing because we got caught up in the turmoil is looking at the data, looking at the research, and I have a lot of questions with all these. We've caused a lot of turmoil, closed a lot of schools. What's happened is over the transition of students. I looked at 2022 data for IREAD. That's the most recent thing that I've done, and we have about equivalent district schools, students, 1,700 I think took the test, and 1,800 in our charter and innovation schools. And the charter and innovation schools that are supposed to come and improve things, literally, when you add it all up, were 5% less pass the test. And so I had a lot of questions, and that's one of the things that I'm going to bring to the table if I'm elected in District 1 is ask some questions that aren't being asked. And I think that we really need interventions is my proposal, and really work on them to get through third grade so that they can go on to the fourth.
That's a great question. So a couple of things. So one, IPS. Come on now. So IPS had implemented some high dosage tutoring over the last, year or so in the pandemic due to ESSER dollars. Now that the ESSER dollars have ran out, that is now up in the air, right? So we need to find ways on how we can attract and get those funds to keep that going, because I was already feeling like we still needed more of that, right? We were not able to serve a majority of the students who really needed that additional support when we talk about tutoring. So I think getting really creative. Also, the city of Indianapolis, I had the pleasure of helping them kick off their Circle City Readers program, which is also another high dosage tutoring program for children 3rd grade and lower, right? We want to make sure that any opportunity, partnership, access opportunity, that we can create those opportunities. But another game changer is, how do we empower the parents? I had the privilege of being able to build an amazing program that teaches parents how to teach their kids how to read based on science of reading practices. That's what the educators know. So teach the first and most important teachers, and even if they're not able to be up to speed like a traditional licensed educator, they're going to be game changers at home to be able to help close some of those gaps as well. So how can we create an ecosystem where the full village is involved in increasing our literacy outcomes and opportunities for our students?
I come from a lens, again, of being proactive. And like I said, as an early childhood provider, I believe that we can expand access to pre-K. That means that more students will have the foundations of reading before they enter kindergarten. And that's very important, so that we're not waiting until 3rd grade to look at these test scores and trying to fix the problem. The other thing is giving the power back to the schools. The teachers know exactly what those students need. So providing the resources, allocating resources, tutoring service, listening to those teachers so that we can ensure that all of our kids are prepared for the 3rd grade reading test. And then lastly, creating quality schools. It helps families stay in the district. And that's important, because if we continue to if our kids continue to compete, they have to have great people to compete with. And so that just brings everybody up. And we want to continue to have great students in the district, so we got to create quality schools. So it's just 3-pronged approach. Provide more access to pre-K, get the resources to the teachers, and create great quality schools so that all of our families stay in the district.
Thank you. First of all, I agree with everything that's been said thus far. I would say, just from a very transparent moment, if you would have looked at my 3rd grade test scores, social sciences would have written me off. No way in the world they would have said that I would be a school board commissioner if you looked at my test scores in 3rd grade. So one of the things that we have to continue to do is make sure that we're zeroing in on high dosage tutoring. working with organizations like the Circle City Readers Program that I was fortunate to kind of help inspire and bring back here to the city of Indianapolis through our mayor. Also, Listen to Our Future done some amazing work with our students, so making sure that we identify resources that allow us to make sure that we can make that tutoring accessible and equitable to all of our students. I've had the privilege of attending every school within the district. Most recently, as I've been doing my round 2 of visiting schools, I've had an opportunity to see our students in real time utilizing the Youth Life curriculum. It's nothing more amazing to see our young people really excited and engaged about reading. My good friend Nuri Muhammad has a saying that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. So we must be willing to invest in our young people, particularly at that 3rd grade level, because we know that the prison system is building bids based on those reading scores. And we don't want our students to enter into any of those bids.
Thank you. For question number 5, we'll actually have a KIPP staff member, Dr. Sharp.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Dr. Sharp, and I am the junior class grade level chair at KIPP Indy. Well-prepared and committed teachers are vital for ensuring students graduate ready for college and careers. Through Teach Indy, IPS has partnered with the city and nonprofit organizations to bring more outstanding teachers to Indianapolis. What policies, partnerships, programs should school board members champion to prepare, recruit, and retain high-quality educators in every classroom? And how can teachers partner with you to support teacher recruitment and retention across school districts? Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Sharp. Our question will go to Harris and Pink, Rashid and Choke.
Thank you for the question. One of the things that we have to remember is that in creating policies, we have to make sure that we're in line with the General Assembly, who actually makes the overall policies for our school districts in the state of Indiana. And so one of the things we have to make sure is when we're looking for teachers, we have to make sure the teachers understand that their school will be safe. We have to make sure that the pay rate meets the qualifications for that teacher. It's a lot of things that go into a lot of pieces to this question that you asked. And so, because I'm not on the board, it's very important that we learn what is going on first with the board in selecting teachers for the IPS district. How can the teachers help? What a wonderful question. Teachers should always be in the mix with what's going on with bringing on new teachers for their building, for the students in their building. And yes, that is a big piece of what I would love to see us learn how to do better on this board, is making sure that teachers are a part of the selection committee, and they may already be. Again, I'm not on the board, but I certainly believe that teachers should be a part of selecting teachers for their school district. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just keep talking. Keep talking.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again for this question. As a former teacher, I have a very unique lens. So I know I keep saying I'm a former teacher, but my unique lens is that I first taught at James Garfield School 31, which is a traditional school within our district. I then transitioned to Cold Spring School, which is an innovation partnership school as well. And at both of those schools, I witnessed the power of good education to transform lives, but I also saw where our systems fell short. One of the things that was Similar in both of those experiences was the lack of diversity between teachers and students. At my first school and at my second school, I found myself being the only black teacher in both of those buildings. So when I transitioned out of teaching, I wanted to take on the responsibility of finding mirrors in that classroom, mirror in those classrooms. Where I started first was our community, really ensuring that we were able to find educators in our community to partner and to support our schools. Dr. Sharp mentioned Teach Indy, and the executive director, Sarah Marshall, is doing a fantastic job of ensuring that teachers have the opportunity to convene and to obtain professional development and to build advocacy among one another and to be able to build the strength and the resilience that it takes to be able to move education forward in the classroom. So is my time on? Okay, sorry, I couldn't tell. Thank you very much.
This is a great question, and it really starts with our teachers. It is so important. I'm not an educator, but I'm in sales, I'm in business, and you have to incentivize your employees. You got to give them a reason. You have to give them a living wage. These teachers need a living wage. I would even get creative and maybe provide discounts on housing. That's for teachers. Maybe you give them a lower rate on their mortgage, or you provide just discounted housing in total. But you have to give them a reason to want to come in. I mean, they're already passionate, but that passion will burn out if they're not making the money that they need to support their own family. So teachers that are currently employed need to be part of that decision-making process. And I think even the students, a board of students that could come in and also give some input on who's coming in. We have interns that we are at the top schools, we're recruiting, getting them in here, so they already kind of have an idea what the student makeup is, and it's not a shock when they get in here. They know what's going on. So all those things are important and will continue to keep like I like to say, one in the hopper, where we've always got teachers coming in, and it's not a gap. So, but we have to incentivize. Living wage is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Teachers are the front lines to all of this, and teachers are probably more important than the leaders, honestly, because they're the ones who are day to day in front of our children doing the work. I think that we've kind of gotten away from building communities around the schools. I believe in collective bargaining. I think teachers are important in our police force, our fire force, our firefighting force. And I think that those are some of the tools that we can use. I think by working with the teachers that we can sustain a workforce that stays in the classroom. We have career pathways that are developed for our own schools. I think that's how we get our teachers to reflect the student body. I think that's the simplest solution, is the people who live here. When we bring people in from out of state who are just going to stay here temporarily to get a bonus check or something like that, they don't stick with the job. I mean, if you have teachers who are gone after 3 years, they're not even teachers yet as far as I'm concerned, because I think it takes like 5 years, really, to really be prepared to work in the classroom. And I think that we really should address how we look at schools and how we can keep people in the same buildings, because that continuity builds community within the schools. That helps every child learn better. It builds people they trust from year to year. And I think that that's part of the solution.
Thank you. We'll have one final stakeholder question from Dion. Dion, to be here tonight.
Can you all hear me? Yeah. Perfect. All right, so my name is Dion Rooks. I live in the community, work in the community, and my question is about transportation and family absenteeism. Okay. So, students who are chronically absent are at a great risk of missing early learning milestones, failing classes, not graduating on time, or Many factors contribute to chronic absenteeism, as you all know. But we know that having reliable transportation is a major support for families to ensure their student is attending school every day. Over the past 2 years, IPS has pared down its transportation offerings due to the significant costs of district-wide transportation. So, this is a two-part question. Questions are, what role do you believe IPS needs to play when it comes to transportation of busing in the city? The second part, how should the district balance managing transportation costs with ensuring all students in the city have access to reliable and quality transportation aid? Need to
Well, obviously, transportation is really important for kids getting back and forth to school. I think IPS plays a really critical role, and paring that down does really prevent some kids from making it to school, because we know that we're serving predominantly low-income communities. And so we've got to be intentional to make sure that our children are able to make it to their destination every day. I think we really need to get creative too. There's a policy that passed, a couple of years ago here in the state of Indiana that allows schools to get really creative on the type of transportation that they're offering. So meaning transportation doesn't mean a bus. Like, how do we get creative to make sure that we've got folks who have background checks that are able to get creative on the different types of transportation if there are any issues or gaps in transportation needs. So the mechanism doesn't matter, right? We need to make sure that our kids are making it to school, and is IPS really making sure that no stone is left unturned? Because that's what we got to do to make sure that our children are making it to school. So ultimately, when it comes to transportation, yes, we should be investing, but we also got to get really creative. And also, are we tapping into partnership? It takes a village, y'all. So partnership, if we talk about getting creative with transportation, are there some local community centers that have transportation that can help with that too, where all of the cost is not on the district, that has some amazing grants, amazing opportunities. But again, we need to leave no stone unturned when it comes to making sure our babies can be at school every day.
Thank you for your question, because that's been a real concern of mine as well. A few years ago, we had that same issue. I personally had that same issue of deciding where my son was going to school, because it was a choice of sending my little kindergartner 30 minutes on a bus or across town. And then I had to adjust my work schedule to make sure that happened. So I appreciate that. I really do believe that's the choice, right? The chronic absenteeism is caused from not having a great neighborhood school to attend. We all should be able to go down to the school, attend the school down the street from our houses, and that's just not the case right now. And then I agree with actually getting creative. You know, I just visited a school in Milwaukee where that school was able to partner with the public transportation system and dedicated 2 buses for his students to ride to and from school. And I was amazed. And so if they can do it, why can't we? We're just as great. We got just as great partnerships. So revisiting that partnership with Indigo to possibly designate a couple buses just for students attending IPS would be awesome. And that's something if I'm on the school board, that's something I'll definitely look into.
Yeah, so one of the things I think that we can do is, I'm a minister, and so it always amazes me at how many churches have buses advanced that sit empty Monday through Saturday. And so it's an opportunity for us as a district to be innovative, creative, and reach out and partner with some of our churches and faith-based organizations who have transportation vehicles that could easily get our kiddos from point A to point B. One of the things I did when I was first elected to the Board of Commissioners is that we got an Indigo Pass as a part of our partnership with Indigo, and all of us as commissioners had an opportunity to actually ride the city bus to see what it's like and what it feels like for our students. Some of our students love it. Some of our students had an opportunity not to just use that bus pass to get from school, but they also had an opportunity to use that to go to their cousin's house, go to their friend's house, also go to their place of employment. So I think that there's an opportunity for us as commissioners to continue to increase that partnership with Indigo and also be innovative in the solutions that we provide. I also think that it's critically important that we contact our city council representatives, as well as the mayor, and create an infrastructure. A lot of our school areas and schools don't have sidewalks. I was driving in here today, and it's very difficult for students who live in the neighborhood to actually walk and get to the school because we just don't have the infrastructure in place. So it's an opportunity for us as commissioners to use our place of being a commissioner to really increase those relationships and lobby our city elected officials to create that infrastructure so that students feel safe going to school if they live in the school that they attend.
If you have been in IPS for any length of time, you're of a certain age, you know that transportation has served as both a solution and a barrier for certain issues. Am I right? Okay. So with that being said, I have history as a diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion official. I'm concerned with equity. And when we talk about transportation, currently, as a barrier, I think that we need to be mindful that we hold all schools under the IPS umbrella accountable for the same services. That's where I land on that side of the issue. I believe that if you are in the Innovation Network, you should offer transportation, period. And that's not the case right now. I think that's an issue that we really need to address as commissioners. I would say that the bigger umbrella of that issue is that we have to resource every school that we have in our umbrella equitably. I don't think we're doing that right now. I think if we pull the reins in and we lend more definition to how we would admit schools to the Innovation Network, then we would end up with more resources for the schools that we do end up admitting. We have a lot of churn happening. We have also some great long-standing schools in the Innovation Network that could benefit from the end of the churn. Does that make sense? So my daughter went to Herring High School. She went to Irvington Charter School. I like certain charters. I think there are some that are worth their weight, and those have been around a long time. We could serve them better by tightening the Innovation Network process.
Thank you. That's everyone for that question. We'll have a couple of questions from the audience, but first we do want to thank all the community members who participated in the survey to help generate the questions that were asked earlier. So, for our audience question, first up, make sure that we remember each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to these. The state has recently provided new funding for apprenticeship programs, especially for high schoolers. What role does the board play in helping curate and coordinate these partnerships? And this question will be for Pink, Rashid, Shows, and then Harris.
Thank you so much. With 3 children currently enrolled in the district, the importance of the 3 E's, which are the importance of the 3 E's, which are the 3 C's, which are career, attainment, college attainment. It is just really important to ensure that any access to the modern apprenticeship process could really ensure that our students are successful. I believe right now the district is doing a fantastic job with its future centers. It's doing an excellent job as far as being able to expand that opportunity and that process for all of our students. So again, ensuring that the expansion of the future centers continues within the district is something that I hope to be able to support. And again, ensuring that our students have access to career, college, and recruitment. Thank you so much.
So as I stated earlier, I'm not an educator, but I am in business. I've been lucky enough to work on projects such as the 69 expansion. I've worked on the mass transit program for the Purple Line. And all these programs that I've worked on, what I see is not a lot of black and brown folks working on these jobs. I think that it would be a vital and an important thing to use those partnerships that I have, bring those to the table as opportunities for our youth in apprenticeship. And I think we need to use those across the board, whatever relationships that the current board members have, and myself as a board member coming to the table. I think that would be a great opportunity and set our kids up for success. Thank you.
Well, I think it was it's not the 3 C's, and the fourth, entrepreneurship, I think, no one brought that to the table a few years ago. And that would be employ, enlist, and enroll in one of these colleges, I suppose, or one of the many. That what Tom's saying here is really important. As a board member, we have to leverage our own relationships in the business community to get opportunities that fit the future and the needs. I think one of the issues that we see right now is that we're directing kids to jobs that may not exist in 5 years because the job landscape is changing so fast. And in 5 years, there's going to be jobs that exist that don't exist today. So we have to prepare them not for something very specific. I think that what are these internship programs give real life experience that applies across many things. So I think that all students that want to work should be in an intern program like that.
So I did not hear the question clearly. Could you please repeat it?
Sure. The state has recently provided new funding for apprenticeship programs, especially for high school students. What role does the board play in helping curate and coordinate these partnerships?
Thank you. So I have had the experience to actually do this. When I worked for the IPS School of Medicine, and I did the outreach at Christmas Adams High School for the medical magnet program, we worked with the IPS School of Medicine, and the students got opportunities actually in the summer to work in research. They got opportunities to work in medical labs. They got opportunities to do a number of these things. Our students, unfortunately, don't get these opportunities. They got opportunities to work in doctor's offices. So I am quite familiar with how this works very well, and how it's very successful. Those students who worked during the summer ended up with a white coat, and we had a program for them and everything, and so they got to see how, and not just being a doctor. There's a lot of things in the hospital and field that is more than just being a doctor. So I've had that opportunity, and I would love to share it with the board. Thank you.
Thank you. For our final question, we live on 36th Street. We have issues with safety at bus stops. Currently on 34th Street, they have a monitor for at least one stop. That man was recently hit by a passing speed vehicle. IPS said they can't do anything. Transportation says they can't do anything. Can anything be done to ensure our children's safety? This question will go to Thompson, Allen, Cosby, and then Thomas.
As we all stated here, but the most important thing is really allocating our resources effectively and being really intentional about where we put those resources. And I think that would make a big statement in our school safety, whether it's in school or waiting on the bus stop. Being really intentional, creating a plan and having a plan in place and having a vision on what we believe safety looks like, and really making sure our administration implements that vision and implements that strategic plan effectively. But the most important thing is really allocating our resources and being very intentional about where we're allocating those resources to ensure our students, again, get to school safely and home safely. That's the main priority.
Let me first say the response that IMPD gave and the response that transportation gave is totally unacceptable. Our student safety is the #1 priority for all of us here, elected and those that desire to be elected as commissioners. So that we say that at the top. I think we have an opportunity to be very innovative and go back to some of the things that worked back in the day. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. I was very fortunate that my elementary school, as well as my church and my grandparents' house and my home was all on the same block. And those neighbors would come out of their house to make sure that our students made it to school safe. And so we have an obligation as a district, as one of the largest district in the state of Indiana, to be very creative, talk to our neighbors, get them engaged so they can be the eyes and the ears to make sure that our students are getting from point A and point B. I spent the last 9 years working directly all over the state, advocating for victims of human trafficking, and we know that the bus stop is a target for those victims, or potential victims of human trafficking. So I really want the district, and I want to encourage the district to continue to be creative and innovative and develop those partnerships with our neighbors and with our voters and citizens.
So I look at the problem from the purview of hiring. There's holes all over the place. I've seen ads for bus drivers. I've seen ads for monitors. Everybody is hurting for people. And I think that what we're seeing is evidence of gaps in security and safety where we need people to be monitoring and we just don't have anybody. And so I think, from where I sit, part of the problem is the salaries that we're paying nowadays don't keep up with the cost of living. So some of these positions are very hard to fill. And from the purview of a person who trains future teachers, many of my future teachers are taking jobs in schools they're not quite qualified to take, but we're hurting so bad, they're welcome to take them. This is the world we live in. I have been endorsed by the organized labor movement at this point. I feel like I have my finger on the pulse of the workers, and I would speak as a board member to their concerns.
Thank you. So I have been directly impacted by this issue just at the end of June. Many of you probably don't know, but my daughter was hit by a vehicle walking across the street to her bus with the bus arm being out. I realized how disruptive and how traumatic that was for the other kids that were on the bus, the folks who were there to make sure she was good, and for my family. And so I don't wish that on anybody. I would say the first thing I thought about is, as an advocate, I immediately thought about what is the city doing about this, right? Because sometimes we put everything on the school, but it really does take a village, and I don't think that we're leveraging enough of our partnership and connections to make things happen. But the city of Indianapolis passed a zoning policy shortly after my daughter was hit. And the first thing I thought was, I'm gonna do an interview to push this, and I'm gonna advocate to make sure that people show up and support this policy for safety for pedestrians and cyclists, right? But what are some other things that we need to add to amend that particular policy? I think it's important for us to understand that it can't always be on the district, but it is the commissioners in the district's role to find opportunity for collaboration and collaboration with the city, who's also trying to make our streets safe, right? How can we collaborate with them to make sure, do they have a budget to make sure that we can cover some of the income? I love what I'm hearing about labor, but how are we collaborating? Because we can talk about it, but where the money reside, okay? We need to bring the money in, and if the city has money backing that policy, then we should be right there lock in step with them, right? Who else has money to make sure that we can contribute to the people that we're gonna put in position? Because this is not okay for anyone to not feel safe. And IMPD, anyone who is all about our children's safety should be really concerned about this. And every child does not make it out. My daughter made it out. My daughter will fully recover, but every child does not, and it is disruptive for our communities, and more trauma on top of our children, on top of our teachers, on top of our communities, every time we get to experience something when all we have to do is show up in collaboration and make sure that we're prioritizing the safety of our babies and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for answering community development questions and the questions from our audience here live. We hope that the audience walks away with a clear understanding of what your priorities are. And to wrap up, we'll have some closing remarks. We'll have 30 seconds. We'll go in alphabetical order. We'll make it easier as you all pass the mic. But we'll go in alphabetical order. We'll have 30 seconds for each candidate.
Again, thank you to KIPP and to all the partners and to Martha that organized this event. Again, my name is Kenneth Allen, I'm currently the Vice President of the Board. I've had the opportunity in the last 3+ years to visit every school in our district, as well as some of our innovation schools, and I want to continue the progress that we've made. There's still much more work to do. Someone asked, why would you want to do this again? Well, I took some time during the pandemic as a part, when I was on this board, to actually get a certificate in education finance from Georgetown University. And for those that are not familiar with education finance, it's as boring as watching paint dry. And so I want to be able to utilize the skills and abilities that I've learned, be on the board, be in the commission, continue to do the great work that IPS needs and deserves.
Good evening, my name is Dr. Gail Cosby. I'm running for the board again. I've served one previous term. I know what it takes. I have a PhD in urban education studies from IUPUI. Currently work with future teachers at Ivy Tech. I'm a former IPS teacher. I see this district from a lot of different perspectives. I'm a graduate. I went to IPS kindergarten through 12th grade. I can talk to you about history, long time ago and present day, things that are going on. I appreciate your time this evening and your consideration of my vote.
Thank you so much for allowing us this evening. My name is Carrie Harris, and I'm running for IPS School Board at large. You've heard a lot of issues. You've heard a lot of things being said, what could be done and what should be done. I believe that IPS deserves bold and innovative and creativity in their educational service to our students, and I am willing to do that for you. I have a platform. It's called First Things First. We should be thinking about education, students, teachers, families, and communities. And we should think about the integrity of the IPS board. So I'm concerned that if you don't put the right people in place and we don't get the right people in other places, IPS will no longer exist. Carrie Harris for IPS School Board at large.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. Again, my name is Alyssa Pink, and I'm your District 4. I am currently an IPS parent. I am a former IPS educator and an experienced community advocate. I believe that for our district to thrive, we need equitable partnerships. I'm committed to being a voice for every student and family in our district. And I look forward to working with you all to make that vision a reality. Thank you all so much.
I want to thank KIPP Schools. Martha, thank you for having us this evening. I am Hassan Rashid, your District 2 candidate. I'm not an educator, but I am educating, and I believe that my business acumen brought to the board will help the changes that need to come for IPS. We will address the issue of literacy. We will address the issue of safety in the schools and transportation as well. If elected, that will be my platform. Again, Hassan Rashid, District 2 candidate. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alan Schoaf, and I'm running for District 1 because I think a fresh voice up on the board. I think that we now have commonality. I think we're not looking at things with a broader perspective. I feel like The schools have been unstable for the last 12 years, and my witness that I've been engaged, the research I've done on data doesn't match up with all the marketing misinformation. Something's not right here. And I think that we need somebody on the board to ask questions. You know, we shouldn't have 7-0 votes on everything. Even if there's a dissenting vote, it's not to be in disagreement, it's to say there are other ideas. And that's why I hope you'll vote for me.
Thank you. Ashley Thomas, IPS District 1. I am a proud mother of 3. I am also an IPS parent, proud product of IPS schools as well, and an advocate. I promised myself and my community over 10 years ago that I would never sit down again when it came to advocating for our babies, and I will not. So regardless of if you choose to vote for me or not, in District 1, you're going to see me. You've already seen me, and I'm talking about from the streets all the way to the policy and state house. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Deandra Thompson. Again, thank you all for coming. I'm for candidate for the at-large seat. And I am about quality schools. I believe quality schools equals great neighborhoods. There's some great schools in IPS, but I believe all students should have access to quality schools. All schools should be great. And I'm a mom, I built schools, I'm an early childhood educator, and I believe that's the one missing piece on the board right now, is that we're not talking about pre-K, access to pre-K. And so when I'm on the board, I will definitely be that advocate, and then again, ensuring that all students have access to great schools.
Thank you. Thank you. A big thank you to all of you. Prepare for election day. There are a few ways for you all to stay engaged and to do an overview of these opportunities. I'm going to welcome Martha Cortez, Chief Partnerships Officer for KIPP Indy.
All right, everyone. Also, a big thank you to Peter Jones, Editor-in-Chief at the Indy Recorder. I'm going to keep it short because when you be here, I can already tell you're very engaged in this process. These are very important conversations. If you see kiddos with vote shirts, they actually did this voter registration drive last week. So shout out to all the partners who joined us. Our students are very engaged. We're counting on you. For those that are not quite 18 and can't vote, they're counting on you to really share your perspective on this like historical election, whether we're talking about local school boards, at the state or at the federal, is very important. So if you got a little program, these states are on there. The voter registration deadline is October 7th. Whether you think you're already registered or not, just go to the indianavoters.in.gov to just check your voter registration status, update your address if needed, just make sure you're ready. Early voting begins literally the day after at the City County building. So if you want to, I hear potentially 8-hour lines again, but seriously, if you want to be there, just go vote. And additional voting centers will open later in the month, so there's also opportunities. Absentee ballots, I know some folks may have gotten used to that process in the past, but due to some legislative changes, just make sure that you are still indeed eligible. The people that you love are still eligible, just to make sure they don't lose out on the opportunity. And of course, our infamous election day, November 5th, get out the vote. It is very important, as we talked about this, Black and brown communities. It is critical that our voices are leveraged at every opportunity, but the voting right belongs to us all. So please make sure you're investing your time. And I know a couple of my colleagues last time, they were reminded that they can cast their vote at any vote center. So also look at which one's the closest to you. We have that all in the program, but just vote, make sure that your voice is heard on this election and all local, state, and federal elections. Once again, thank you to the candidates for joining us. I know we asked you some hard questions, but it was critical that we could center the voice of our community. You all have invested so much time with us, so we appreciate that. For folks, I know a couple questions came in at the end. Those questions are very important. Obviously, we ran out of time, but I included the email addresses of candidates as well. Or feel free, if you guys are going to hang out for a couple minutes, if you want to ask questions directly today. But if not, they're always very ready to email. They have been very pleasant. They have been responsive, so I can definitely guarantee that piece. And again, thanks again for joining us. I know some folks also have raffle tickets. So I'm actually going to hand it over part of two of our tremendous colleagues who are part of our family and community engagement team. Shout out to the Anna Martin team. We're able to have these types of positions that are very important for our family and communities, but they also get to do some of the fun work. So I'm going to kick it over to them, but raffle, but again, thank you. Big round of applause. Candidates, thank you.
That's not what I told you to do.
She will be able to